If you've ever felt like you can get past half guard or you can get in a mount, but you don't know how to submit your opponent from there, I have a really simple solution, and that is smother chokes. Now, I've been doing jiu-jitsu for 9 years. I'm a brown belt, and I've really only fallen in love with these over the past year and a half. They're funny, they're easy to do, and even if you don't finish it, it's a great place to cook your opponent so that you zap their energy and they're easier to beat in the long run. So, without further ado, let's jump in. Now, before we jump right into the smother choke, I want to show you a practical way to get there. I could just show it to you, but if you can't get to the position where you can finish it, it's no good to you. So we're gonna start with me sitting in my training partner's half guard. Now, as you can see in this example, there's a couple things that I want to do. I want to clear the knee shield, and I also want to prevent him from getting a really deep underhook with his near side arm. With my outside arm, in this case, it's my left arm, I use the bicep and inner elbow area to block his neck and face from encroaching in on my body even further. Once my arm connects with his head and neck, I push his body away so that he's not curled up underneath me. I almost want to flatten him out here. The more flat I can get him, the better off I'm going to be. Now, depending on how tired your opponent is, and this is an important element to almost any submission, but specifically smother chokes, they're easier to finish when your opponent is out of breath. I've talked about this in the past where we pull oxygen from a pocket of air up here. And if you can interrupt that pocket of air, it becomes more difficult to breathe. If you've ever been training in the gi and maybe you're stuck on bottom and your opponent's gi drapes across your face, and even though it's not choking you, it's in the way and it becomes problematic. It almost, for the people who aren't trained yet or not acclimated, it can even incite a panic response. So that's a concept I want you to focus on moving forward. You don't have to be perfect here. If I can interrupt his flow of oxygen, even if I don't get the tap, I can cook him and make him maybe panic a little bit or just zap his energy so that he's easier to manipulate and beat further on down the match. So from this position, once I have him flattened out, it's very simple, especially if he's tired, to jump my pec, my chest area, up over his face. Now, again, there's a couple elements that will make this easier to finish. Like I mentioned, him being tired, but also if you're sweaty. If you're doing no-gi and your rash guard is wet, this is gonna create a more effective seal once you smash your chest or your pec over his nose and mouth. So as you can see here, once I have my pec flat to his face, I'm also curling his head up into my chest with my arm that's underhooking his head. Also helping is my right hand, which is gripped onto my left hand. Now, I'm not gonna sit here and sell you the moon and the stars and tell you that you're gonna finish everybody from right here. It's very likely that he's gonna turn his head towards the center to escape this choke. And it's honestly pretty easy to do from this position. This is kind of just a cheap way to see if he respects it or not. It's a way to see if you can catch it. I mean, sometimes I've caught these here, but most of the time, if you're going with blue belts and up, they're gonna turn away from it and you're not gonna be able to get it. This is totally fine. From here, what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna work on passing the half guard, and I can either choose to go to side control or I can choose to go to mount. Now, the best place to finish the smother choke, in my opinion, is mount, but if for some reason you just feel more comfortable with side control, this is what you're gonna do. While I'm keeping good pressure on the top of his head, I'm going to prep my feet by getting on the balls of my feet. I'm then going to stick my butt straight up in the air, and I'm going to get my inside knee on his bottom leg, inner thigh. From here, it's very easy to pressure down and windshield wiper out so that I can easily slide past his half guard lock. And as you can see here, I drop right into side control relatively easily. Now, I wouldn't really recommend trying to hit smother chokes from side control. It's a bit risky, especially if you're new to these. So let's cover getting into mount. So as you can see here, it's a very similar setup. I'm gonna prep myself by getting on the balls of my feet, and I'm gonna stick my butt up in the air by locking my legs out. From here, instead of moving my right knee to his inner thigh on the bottom leg, I'm looking to insert my right knee into the pocket of his hip. From here, it's very easy to slide that knee like a needle through his hip and onto the ground, thus allowing me to drop into mount. Now, what's really cool about this is if that opponent really commits to that underhook, you're dropping in a mount and his arm is gonna be trapped. Now, depending on how strong your opponent is, you're gonna have to be careful here. They're gonna have to be pretty strong to kind of ghost escape out of this. But from my experience, if you keep tight pressure with your legs, kind of like you would if you have back control and you trap their arm while looking for the rear naked choke, It's a very similar pressure. Now from there, my left arm is already prepped underneath his head, which is great. I'm then going to remove my right arm and slide that underneath his head as well. From here, I'm grabbing both of my elbows and I'm keeping tight pressure on his head. Now, once you get this, he's pretty stuck. Now, this is the cool part. The arms that are underneath his head act like a fulcrum, and it allows you to tilt his face up. If I'm able to tuck my chin to my chest, it's gonna be a lot harder to get this. Now, if we look at the example, I've got my hands on my elbows. I've put my chest, sternum first, over his nose. And as I squeeze up through my arms, I'm also dropping my hips down and pushing up his body, almost in a way that it would open his face up even more, exposing his nose and mouth towards the sky. From here, it's very simple to go ahead and just crush in with your arms, drop your chest weight down, pushing up with your hips and legs. And this is one of those things where, depending on how tired he is, it could be an instant tap. If he's really gasping for air, if he's pretty fresh, it could take a second. Regardless, even if you feel like you don't have it, this is a great place to cook your opponent. The position alone, being in mount with the arm trapped, can incite some version of panic in your opponent, whether they're pretty calm, but even mentally, they're like, I know I'm in a bad spot, or if they have less training and they really start trying to explode. This is a great place to cook your opponent, so don't bail on it right away unless you're losing the position. And I just want to take a second to give my sponsor, X Martial, a shout out. On the mats, you've got seconds to react and sometimes even less. You train for hours to move with precision. Your gear should keep up. X Martial makes high quality, high performance no-gi gear. The fit is clean and the material durable, breathable, and built for battle. One thing I can't stand about certain no-gi brands is how quickly the material falls apart and how quickly the designs wash away. Literally every single one of my rash guards that I own from X Martial has stood the test of time. I've been training Jiu-Jitsu for 9 years and I still have rash guards that look brand new. And since we're talking about the designs, they're original, they're unique, they help you look good. If you're gonna go compete and you don't feel you look your best, you think that's helping you in your performance, you wanna go out and feel good about the person that you've built. And no-gi attire definitely helps with that. So if you want to look as good as me and probably even better, get over to xmartial.com and grab yourself some gear. I know you'd be happy you did. Look good, feel sharp, roll hard. Let's get back to the video. Now keep in mind that the sternum smother choke is a little bit more mean because this is a hard section of your body. This is bone. And as I'm crushing in on his face and his nose, you can get a pain tap from the nose. And I will say that this is mean. So if you're training with friends, you're training with training partners, you don't have to crush each other's noses, right? You can get to the position and feel it. Be good to each other, right? There's no reason to hurt your training partners. I'm all for aggressive training, but aggressive is one thing, hurting or causing injury is another. So be careful with that. Now, the other option is just using your chest meat or your pecs. It's a very simple transition from having his face in my sternum to maybe rocking my chest left or right, and then readjusting so that his mouth and nose are both pressed into my pec. And it's the same concept. I apply upward pressure through my arms. I squeeze in almost like a bear hug, drop my hips down and apply upward pressure through my body so that it arcs his face up towards the sky. Hold this one nice and tight. It usually will create a better seal than the sternum will because there's more flesh. And if you're sweaty, it will create a nice airtight seal. Now, the last piece of this is obviously people are going to be trying to turn one way or another, trying to free their face. If you get both arms under their neck, it's pretty easy to rotate their face by moving your chest left or right. You can take your top hand in the bear hug lock and move it to the top of his head and almost steer his face with that hand in combination with using your chest to also steer his face. And once you get his mouth and nose right where you want it, straight into the pec, you then rewrap and apply that pressure that you need for the finish. Now, the reason I like this is just because it's a bit harder for the guy in bottom to hit mount escapes. Once this is 80 to 90% locked in, I mean, once it's 100% locked in, you see a lot of people get finished with these. So it's great because it doesn't cost you a lot of energy. It doesn't put you in a lot of risk. And if you don't get it, like I said before, you can cook your opponent here and really gas him out so that he's easier to beat further down the road. If you want to make your life a little bit easier when you're sparring or even competing, this is one great way to do that. So with that, let me know what you guys think of smother chokes. Are you using these yet? Are you not using them? Where do you see success the most with them? Do you have a different way of doing it? Drop your experience in the comments because I always say I'm not the only teacher here and everybody can learn from your guys' knowledge. I always appreciate those of you that share. So with that, you know how we like to end them, sometimes backwards, always forwards. I'll see you in the next one.